Welcome all the teachers. My name is Akash, and I am from a company called as MyPet. So we are part of a Fiji group. So Fiji is our content partner, and so Fiji is already in the market, and with their content, they have produced so many toppers in the market. So we are basically a academic plus software company. So we are using the content from Fiji and actually trying to implement it in the schools all over India. So the product which we have is MyPad that is already being used by more than 60,000 parents or students all over India. And in this session, we are going to see how are the different kind of challenges we are facing and what are the kind of solutions we are bringing on the table. And yeah, before doing that, a brief background about me. So I am working in this education sector from last 8 years, and I have been part of various projects such as implementation of right to education. I have also written a book for teachers, which is about uh, 21st century teaching. And in addition to that, I have also built products which are based on activity based learning. Without wasting further time, so I will start this session. A brief, so just a one suggestion for all of you. If you feel free to interrupt or have any question, please feel free to raise your hand or ask in the comment section. We would like to attend you all your queries as soon as possible, and we will address all the queries in this session. So the topic of today's discussion is, so I hope I'm audible. Please confirm if there is any issue with my voice or video. Rajesh, can you confirm?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, fine. So the topic of today's presentation is about improving the school's academic performance. So see, whenever we make any product, okay, so it has to start with some kind of an end goal, like what are we trying to achieve? And the goal, the ultimate goal which we have while making this MyPad product is to improve the school's academic performance. So while we were starting to work on this problem, and it was like around 6 7 months back we started this, we actually talk to a lot of teachers in India. I personally like talk to more than 15 to 20 teachers. As a team, we talk to 300 plus teachers to get their feedback about what kind of challenges they are facing and what are the changes they see in the teaching world now as compared to earlier, right? So that was going on. So we had a lot of learnings which I will share with you, and then I will also share with you like how are we actually trying to address all the challenges which teachers are facing. So just to start here, so these are the changes which we found after our study. We found like these are the main challenges or changes which as a teacher we are facing. So as you can see on this screen, so the first point which is mentioned is information abundance. So we are right now living in a world of social media. Right now everything is happening on internet and a lot of information is available around us. This was not the situation some time back, like around 10 15 years back. That was not the case. So lot of information has definitely helped us in a lot of ways, but it has also came up, it has also resulted in a lot of challenges for all of us. I will tell you like what are the different new challenges we are facing because of this and how to approach the problems because of that. Then the second thing which we found was how to measure the learning effectiveness. This point was applicable or more relevant because of coronavirus, because teachers were teaching in online classes and there was no way, or it was very difficult for them to measure the learning effectiveness of their classes. Okay. Then second is engagement. So how a teacher can keep their classroom engaged, because right now you are competing with other social media platforms or YouTube, because students are just learning from you on a video conferencing software like Zoom, right? So how do you ensure that students are engaged? And this is not only related to online classes, it is also related to your actual classes which are happening in the classrooms. How to engage the students. Then next one is technology tools. So every sector is being touched by technology. Like cabs, if you see, earlier we used to book cabs by calling drivers. Now everything is available on app. Now education sector is also getting impacted. A lot of new technologies have come up, how to use new tools and how to use the technology to your advantage. That is also one thing which teachers found, that it is something which every teacher has to learn. And all these things are actually ultimately going to help you in managing the classroom learning experience. So this is the theme of the discussion which we had with all the teachers. We will see how these challenges are coming and what are the solutions we can think about for all of them. So the first one was information abundance, as I told you. So there is a statement on my screen you can read. It is not the information overload, it is filter failure. And the problem I'm talking about is collection versus curation. So what happened around 10 to 20 years back, all of us had a tendency to collect a lot of things. If I can get a lot of, so people used to boast about like they have this much collection. Let us take the example of songs. Okay, so my father actually liked Kishore Kumar song, so he had collected big cassettes and all that. And people used to have these kind of collections. People used to have collection of books, collection of DVDs or things like that, right? But now if you see, everything is available online. You don't have to collect anything. You want to see a song, you want to watch a song, or you want to listen to it, you can just go to online or YouTube or Spotify. You can listen to that song and enjoy. If you are looking for some books, books are also available online. You can go to Kindle and it has a repository of, it can have a repository of like thousands of books. Okay, the problem which now comes is about curation. Because right now if I'm looking for something, I will find hundreds of websites which will provide me the same information. Now how as a teacher I know, or how as a person I know that which one is the best resource available? Okay, this is where the problem of curation comes. So information abundance is there, but sometimes a lot of junk content is also available. So let us say as a teacher you want to teach the concept of heart. Okay, but when you find when you are looking for some animation, you find hundreds of them. Which one is the best resource for that? That is something for which you will have to spend time. And sometimes it is possible that it might take you only 10 to 20 minutes to explain that topic to students, but ultimately you will end up spending hours because you are looking for the right resource also. So this is the new challenge which has come up. So curation is becoming more important nowadays. Let us move on to the next slide. So the role of teachers, like how it is evolving nowadays, it can be categorized into three parts. Okay. So especially in the online first world, I would say. So even if you are having an interaction with the offline environment with the students, but everyone is connected with each other through online world. Your students have Facebook account, you have Facebook accounts, anyone can see like what people are doing. We are anyways connected in online world as well. Okay, so the first way to is teaching, then next is evaluation, and third is administration. Okay. So teaching and evaluation are core academic parts, and administration is non-academic part. It can be related to scheduling or other aspects like how, who is going to attend which period, timing, and all that. But when we are talking about core academics part, it is teaching and evaluation where the teacher's role is evolving. Okay, so we need to see like uh, there were different modes of teaching earlier. Because of coronavirus, now new ways have come up and we are learning about it. As a teacher, we are evolving. Same thing goes for evaluation also. Okay, we will see in more detail in further slides. So in this session, I will be covering majorly about teaching and evaluation part. Administration, since it is non-academic activities, we are not going to talk about it. So coming to online class. Okay. So there are basically two modes of teaching in an online environment. Okay. So first one is running the live classes, and second one is teaching asynchronously. Running live classes, what it means is that like we are doing right now in this session as well. So instructor teaches something, they are available on the live class, and students are also available simultaneously, and they listen to each other. And that's how the classroom instruction is going. It results in active engagement, there is direct feedback, and it also builds the credibility of different stakeholders. Why? Because you can see me, I can see you, and we are having a live interaction with each other. Okay. The next thing which comes is teaching asynchronously. What happens in this case is that teachers first create some learning resources. Learning resource can be in the form of a video, it can be notes also, right? Or it can be an audio file or anything, right? So teachers make those learning resources and they upload it somewhere and students access them as per their convenience. Let us say I want to teach a topic of, let us say, Newton's law. Okay. Now what will happen is I will just record my video and I will upload it somewhere and then students will have access to it. Okay. It is not a live interaction, right? So it is having an synchronous, asynchronous setting. So it definitely helps in having a flexible schedule. It is also self-paced and it is technologically less demanding also. See what happens in case of live classes, everyone has to be available on internet at the same time, but that is not the requirement in case of this. Okay, so you just have to come online, you can just download the lecture and again go offline and go through that learning material again. Okay. Next, coming to issues, live classes require students to be available as per the schedule, so it is rigid schedule and it is technologically more demanding, as we have seen. Coming to the disadvantages or issues with respect to asynchronous teaching is lack of emotional connect and there is no way to motivate the learners. So because teachers cannot actually see who is how the students are reacting to their learning material, okay, or they don't know whether students have actually understood or not, and even students don't know like who is this teacher, they don't know that teacher personally, they don't know how to ask questions and all that. Okay, so there is a bit of lack of emotional connect also in that case. Okay, and again because of this, uh, people are not much motivated. So if you are having a classroom setting where students are really motivated, then asynchronous teaching is really good. Okay, this largely happens for higher classes for adult learners. Okay, but for kids, teachers also have to ensure the motivation part of the students. So that is why live classes also come into the picture. What we have seen till now is schools are running a mixture of both live classes and asynchronous teaching. So there are classes, but again, after the class is over, some learning material is shared, or schools have created their Facebook groups for different subjects. And in that, classroom is participating and they are posting comments, and that's how they are learning basically. Okay. Now, when we talk about live classes, it is not that everything is good. There is a dark side of live classes as well. We have seen cases where some students come, or they some extra like person who is not even part of the class, they come and attend the session, and sometimes people say a lot of inappropriate things. They can annotate something on the screen which causes disturbance in the class. Okay, but again with the help of technology, we are able to find those cases and we are able to rectify it. As technology is evolving, we are able to handle more such exceptional cases in our day-to-day life. Any questions, teacher, till now? Please feel free to ask. Okay. So now after this, I will move on to the evaluation part, okay, which is related to measuring the learning effectiveness. Before going to this question, I have a simple question to all of you. What do you think? Is teaching an art or is it science? Any inputs, teacher? Anything you can mention in comment box, or you can send me a message. What do you think about teaching? Is it an art or is it science? Okay, so some of you have told me that it is science, and okay, art is also there. Okay, so it is, I would say it is a mixture of both. It can be science as well as art, or there are some certain aspects of your teaching which can be related to science, and certain aspects which are related to science, like Jennifer ma'am has told. Okay, sometimes it is a mixture of both. Okay, so but before asking this question, I would like to touch upon a larger issue here. The question is, what makes something in art and what makes something in science? Okay, what are the components in a particular field which make it an art or which make it a science? Okay, let me give you one example. Let us say we have a singer, say Lata Mangeshkar. She's a very good singer, she's a very good artist. Okay, we but we don't know like why is she a very good singer, right? So we just feel that she is good. Okay. So, but again, let us say I know Usain Bolt is a very good runner. Okay. He has covered the distance of 100-meter in 9.57 seconds. He's a very good runner. Why I can say that? Because he has covered the distance in least possible time in the world among the humans. Okay. So there is some tangible aspect of measurement which makes something in art versus science. Okay. So just to say in other words, anything which is intangible, that is closer to art, and things which are tangible, that are closer to science. And as a humanity, I would say our progress is basically the story of converting art to science. This is what we have been doing throughout the civilization. Okay. Just to give you one example, let us say let us just go back in time around 200 years back. Okay. When it used to rain and there used to be thunderstorms, people used to think that it is some kind of punishment which God is giving to them. Okay. We were not able to identify like why is it happening. But with the progress in science, we are able to figure out, okay, this is the reason. This is why it rains. This is why thunderstorms come. Okay. Now we are no longer fearful. We no longer worry about them as much as we used to do earlier. Okay. So something which was not measurable for us earlier, now it has become measurable. Okay, so that is the progress. Coming to the topic of education per se, so education also was something which was like more like, okay, you don't know whether someone is learning or not. So there was an effort made by a person. His name is Benjamin Bloom. Okay, so he made one effort to convert the intangible aspects of learning to tangible aspects. He basically derived some kind of learning stages. So for any concept, he identified that there are 5 or 6 stages of learning we have. Okay. So like first one is knowledge, then we have understanding, then we have application, then we have analysis, then we have synthesis, and after that we have evaluation. Okay. So any concept, just to know the proficiency of a particular student, it has to the understanding part has to go through 6 different stages, and the last part is the ultimate stage. Okay, so like first one, when I was saying about knowledge part, it is largely about like people should just know the definition of it. Okay, but when we go to the understanding part, it also means that rather than just knowing about the definition, students should also be able to explain it in their own words. Then next stage will actually implement that, imply that students should be able to apply it somewhere. Okay, then next stage will come where we expect that students should be able to club this concept with some other concept and come up with something new. Okay, so this is how different learning stages come, and that is one of the attempt which this person made in around 1950s in this direction. That has been one of the most remarkable work in education so far. Okay, now coming to the next question, when we are talking about measurement, why is it important? Okay, why am I focusing so much on measurement? Okay, so to answer this question, there is another quote which is written on my screen. It says, whatever can be measured can be improved. Okay, so this statement was given by this person, Peter Drucker, around 100 years back. Okay, 100 years. So just to give you another example here, anything which we want to improve, it has to start with measurement. Consider the example of a person who is trying to lose weight. Okay, so let us say the ideal weight of a person should be 70 kg, but that person is 90 kg. In order to start his journey of weight loss, that person first will have to measure the weight. Without measuring the weight, that person will not know whatever effort he is doing, whether are they good or not. Okay, so first that person will measure his weight, like let us say it is 90 kg. Now he will know, okay, my target is to reduce 20 kg of weight. Now that person will come up with some exercises, he will come up with the diet plan, right? And then that person will work on it. So let us say after 1 week, that person again measures the weight and it again comes at 90. Then that person will know that whatever effort he is putting are not leading to the result. There is no improvement. Then that person will change his approach. Maybe he will change the diet or the exercises that person is doing. Okay, So then only, so let us say next week the weight comes out to be 85 kg. It means that the effort which that person was putting is resulting into some good outcomes. Okay. So that is the measurement aspect. And that is the only thing which can help a person to actually improve any outcome. Okay. Same thing applies to learning effectiveness also. Let us say you are teaching in a class and you don't know whether students are able to learn whatever you're teaching or not. Okay. So only way for you to actually assess whether the learning is happening in your class or not is only through measurement. Okay. So that measurement we also call it assessments. Okay. When we talk about assessments, there are different types of assessment. Just to give a more structure to different types of assessment, we can see that there are largely three categories of assessment. The first one, as you can see on my screen, it is before teaching the concept. Next one is while teaching the concept, and the third one is after teaching the concept. Okay, so the first one here, before teaching the concept, is basically also called as diagnostic assessment. Okay, so what it basically means is that student, we actually try to understand the learning state of a particular student. Having a knowledge of learning state actually tells us whether the student knows the prerequisite concepts or not. If I want to teach multiplication to the kids, if they don't know addition, there is no point in teaching them multiplication. Okay, so having a diagnostic assessment will actually help the teachers. So let us say multiplication as a prerequisite concept of addition. Okay, so students should be proficient in addition before teacher can teach them about multiplication. Okay, so this is the part where this type of assessment helps. Again, this is not evaluating the student at all. Its purpose is completely different. It is to basically give a feedback or idea to the teachers on which concepts the student should be proficient before moving on to the next one. Next one is called as while teaching the concept. It is also called as formative assessment. Okay, so when we talk about formative, as the word also suggests, it happens during the formation of knowledge. Okay, the purpose of this type of assessment is to give feedback to the teachers on whether the learning is happening in the class or not. Okay, so let us say as a teacher, I have taught something today and I want to know whether whatever I am teaching to the students, are they even getting it or not, or should I repeat it again? Okay, so they will take some formative assessment, and after that, if the students are scoring less marks, that teacher will know whatever she has taught, students have not understood it, then she can go through it again. Okay, so in this way we say formative assessment also involves some kind of feedback loop. Okay, so this feedback loop is available only in case of formative assessment, right? Next one comes is after teaching the concept. These are also called as summative assessment. Okay. So this is the assessment which we are most familiar with. This is what we have been doing through our school life, throughout our school life. Okay, so this is the part again where which students fear most. Okay, so not all type of assessments students has to fear from. This is the one where you are actually evaluating the student on whatever learning they have had in some time period. Okay, there is no feedback loop available here. There is no feedback loop. Okay, so let us say a student has scored 60% marks and graduated to the next class. Another student scored 90% marks and graduated to the next class. Both of them will graduate and they won't be going through those topics again because there is no feedback loop. Okay, so that is the difference between these type of evaluations. Now coming to how these things happen in classrooms, this is where like teachers are facing a lot of challenges, and this is where technology also comes into the picture. When we are talking about a scenario where teachers used to create the question papers and assign the question papers to the students and assess it as well, right? So that process was completely manual, and teachers used to create reports to provide the update on how the progress, how much progress students are making. Okay, so and usually only summative assessment used to happen, and there was, because it also involves a lot of effort, teachers did not used to get time for conducting say formative or diagnostic assessments. Okay, so just to give you an example again, let us say I'm a science teacher, and in a week or let us say on a daily basis I take 3 lectures. Okay, now on a weekly basis I'm taking 15 lectures in a school, right? So what it means is that in 15 times, I will have to think about whether my classroom has learned it or not. So you have to take that decision 15 times in a week about what kind of questions to ask from your class. Okay. And it is not just you have to ask, you also have to prepare question papers, and you have to assess the students, then evaluate the answer sheets, and then create the reports. This entire process is coming, and it involves a lot of time. Now it is time for an upgrade. Okay. So with the help of technology, there are a lot of things which have been automated. Okay. So the purpose is, again, so some teachers actually think that since everything is software doing, what are they supposed to do? What it basically means that teachers need to qualify for the next level of their jobs. Okay. So it means that, so as earlier we thought, earlier we discussed that teachers are no longer the source of knowledge. If a student wants to actually learn something, he can just find it online. So in that way, teacher is not the only source of knowledge. Similarly, for assessments, it is not necessary that teachers have to do the entire effort of selecting the questions and then assigning it and then evaluating it and all that. Lot of things can be automated here. Another major aspect is reports. So teachers who were very good in making the reports were considered very good. But now that skill is not that much in demand because reports can be generated with just a click of a button. We will see how. Okay. Now the skills which is required from the teacher side is how do they see the report, how do they assess it, and what kind of academic decisions can they take based on those automatically generated reports. So there is a need for teachers also to upgrade their thinking and their skills in that sense. I will give you one example here. So we will come to this later. So I want to show you like how easily you can conduct the assessments. Uh, on my screen, you will be seeing some, yeah, one second. So on my screen, as you can see, there are two parallel side-by-side windows. Please confirm if you are able to see two side-by-side windows.
Yes, sir, we can see that.
Okay, okay. So as you can see, this is class ninth student. Okay, the student name is Abhishek. Okay, then Rajesh sir is actually teaching the student. Okay, so let us say as a teacher, I am teaching the topic of atoms and molecules. Okay, and I started with the first topic, which is atom. This is the first concept of that chapter. Okay, so after teaching it, I just have to click on this button, and this test will unlock. Okay, now teachers, this is the teacher portal, this one left side, at the right side is the student portal. So students can actually go to this portal and they can attempt this test. So writing chemicals formula, so this test is logged. So my teacher has not taught this topic, actually that is why it is logged. So the teacher has unlocked the topic of atoms. So I will have to see the topic of atoms and it should be unlocked. Yeah. So you can see there is no red color lock here as it was there in the earlier case. It means I will have to spend 20 minutes and I will have to attempt this concept test. And my score in this test will give an idea to teacher about how the entire classroom is performing. Okay. So this is the feedback which teachers will get after teaching any topic. Okay. So this is like how easily we can conduct these kind of assessments. And after every assessment is done, a report will get generated in time which is as less as 5 minutes. Okay, so I'll show you one sample report which gets generated, which got generated after such a test. Okay, so this is a test report. As you can see, in this test, around 24 students participated. This is the classroom statistics. Okay, so school name is Datta Mage World Academy. It is a Bombay-based school. This was the test date. Okay, now going down, this is the basic summary of about the test, like how much marks did my students, like overall marks, and then test duration, subjects involved. Going down further, these are the median marks of my class. Maximum score is 132 out of 200, and this is the minimum score. Then highest attempt rate, lowest attempt rate, and all these statistics. Okay, we will see how why this data is important. Then test performance. This is the average score of my class. So average score is less than 50%. Okay, so 44.2% is the correct percentage here. Now there are different subjects like mental ability test, physics, and scores and different marks scored by the students is covered here. So you can see average score in physics is 3.2, but in chemistry it is 4.4. It means that in chemistry my classroom performance is a bit better than physics. I won't say it is very good, but a bit better. Like biology is marginally like less than the chemistry. So that is like subject wise performance. You can see correct percentage and all that. This is the data for all the subjects. Going down further, this is the marks distribution. As you can see in my class, this is the major area where my entire class is actually coming. Okay, this is the topper. This is the person who has scored the least marks. Okay, so it will give you some idea about how your classroom is performing, okay, overall. Then there are list of notable students. Okay, so as you can see here, the topper of this class is Harsh, and that student has scored 132 marks. It is like 109 is the score of the second ranker, and there is a huge margin between them. Okay, so this is overall. Let us move on to social science. You can see social science, the person who scored the second rank is actually the topper here. Okay, and yeah. Interestingly, if you see physics, so student name is Aditya Singh, and this student has overall rank of 14 in the class. But in physics, this student is the topper. Okay, so what does it tell? So as a teacher, you know that this student has a strength of this particular subject, and it will provide you a better opportunity to harness this skill. Okay, if your student is good in something, that feedback should definitely go to the parents also, and they should put more effort in actually becoming more proficient as well. Okay, so yeah, going further. So yeah, so you can see like in mathematics also, in top 5 the students who are not in top 5 overall have scored good marks in mathematics. So these students have good understanding of mathematics as well. So similarly for different subjects, you have this. Now coming to one thing here. So as I was discussing with you, how a teacher can actually use these reports to improve the academics. I want to give you one example here. Okay. So let me open this. Yeah. So so earlier I was telling you like report making is a very good skill, but teachers need to think beyond reports and they should try to see how the reports can actually help them in improving the academics. So I will give you one example here. So let us say you have a student A in your class and another student is student B. Now coming to the subject wise performance, when coming about chemistry, this student is very good. Okay, but in case of physics, this student is not that good. Okay, but student B is completely opposite to that. So when we are talking about chemistry, this student is not performing good, but in physics his performance is very good. Okay, now this is the data which we have got from the report. Okay, if I go like 10-20 years back, the teacher, what they will think is they will put this student in the extra class for physics and they will put this student in the extra class for chemistry. Okay, because teachers are the source of knowledge, and if your students don't know something, it means that that knowledge has to be given again. Okay, this was the major tendency or major mindset of the teachers we had earlier. Okay, but that is something which is changing now. Now teachers are not the source of knowledge. If your student is bad in physics, there are multiple ways for you to actually become proficient in it. One such way is, can you just combine A and B together? Okay, if you give them an assignment. Okay, so let us say you give them some assignment, and then both of these students actually will learn from each other. A will learn physics from B, B will learn chemistry from A. Okay, so like this they will reinforce each other's knowledge, and students actually find it easy to actually learn from each other as well. Okay, so this is the effective use of reports, I would say, and this is a higher level decision you have taken here as a teacher. Okay, because now you are acting as a facilitator, you are using the strengths of the class to your maximum advantage, and you are no longer acting as a source of knowledge, right? You are just a facilitator here. And this is one example of when I say that teachers need to evolve in their roles. This is one such example you can consider. There are multiple such examples. We will touch down upon one or two more such examples. Let us move further. Okay. Now, next thing which comes is, so like student wise performance you have seen, and how you can leverage this, that also you have seen, right? Now, this is the feedback about students, but these reports will also have elements where teachers will also get feedback. You can see on my screen, there is a section called as weak concept in social science. Okay, so it basically covers those concepts which are weak in your class. How we know that they are weak? It means that less than 20% of the students, or less than 20% of the attempts are correct here. Okay, so when I say correct percentage is 4.1, it basically means that out of 100 students who attempted the question for this concept, only 4 were correct. It means your class is also not very proficient on these concepts. Okay, so this is a feedback for the teachers. Now what teachers need to do is, they will get this feedback and they can find out different ways to actually reinforce this knowledge again. Okay, so this is where teachers can use the feedback directly from these reports and improve their academics. Similarly, you will get such data for different subjects, like here it is for mathematics, biology, chemistry, and so on. Okay, but it is not only weak, there are strong concepts also mentioned, and these are the concepts where your correct percentage is 60%. Okay, so it means that whatever questions were there for this, for these concepts, students were correct more than 60% of the time. Out of 100 students who attempted these questions, 60% scored correct answer. Okay, now how can this help you in your classes? Maybe you have used some kind of an innovative method to teach these concepts. You can use that method to teach the weaker concepts again, right? So that is one example. Similarly, you will get this list for other subjects as well. Okay, then there is time analysis. It tells you how much time students are taking, and like different other lot of other data points are captured. Because of lack of time, I'm not going to go through all of that. Okay, but you got the idea how you can use the data to actually improve or to get the feedback about your classroom learning environment and use it to your maximum advantage. Okay, yeah, moving on. So again, so naturally, like when we are talking about it, next question which comes is, okay, you are making this much attempt and these many things are happening, but is it actually useful? Okay, so now uh, this is where I will tell you like how we have seen the earlier interest and the result, where we have seen this thing working as well. Okay, I will again show you two test reports. So this test was conducted on July 1st. I will put it on side. And this is the another test. You can see. One second. There is some. Yeah. So you can see. Please confirm if you are able to see two PDF files simultaneously. Rajesh, can you confirm? Are two PDF files available on my screen? Can you see it? Please confirm, anyone in the audience.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. So you can see here that this test was conducted on June 3rd and this test was conducted on July 1st. Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this test was conducted on July 1st. Okay. So the topic name is same again. It is acid, bases, and salt. Here also it is acid, bases, and salt. But this is test 2. Okay. This is test 1. Okay. The school name is the Academy of Learning. So what we did is we conducted a chapter test in the school, and we wanted to see whatever feedback is given to students and teachers after the test. Is there any improvement happening in the school or not? Okay. So for capturing that improvement, we conducted another test after a gap of 1 month. Let us see what kind of results did we find. This is a test summary of test 1. This is the test summary of test 2. You can see, uh, so median marks of this class here is 11. Here it is 30. There has been marginal improvement here. Okay. Similarly, maximum marks scored with 14 here. Here it is 17. So topper marks have also increased here, as you can see, right? Going down further, we have seen test performance. So average score is good. This is interesting. See, attempt rate is 98% here, but it is less here. So what it means is that uh, your students are not just attempting the questions just like it comes. Okay, they are also thinking about if they don't know a particular answer, they are leaving it. Okay, so this is also a very good state of self-awareness. If your students don't know a particular answer, they are better off leaving those answers. Okay, so this is what is happening here. Okay, so that is why attempt rate is less here, but correct percentage is more. Here you can see attempt rate is more, but correct percentage is less as compared to test 1, test 2. So this is the behavioral change which we have observed in the class, and it is a positive sign. Coming to the mark distribution of the class, we have seen a very interesting trend here. So as you can see, it is similar to what we have seen earlier. There is like entire class is located here, most of the class, then you have a topper and you have a smart student who has scored less marks. But when we talk about test 2, there is lot of variance happening over, lot of peaks are here coming. Okay, so you can see your toppers are like some students got really motivated and have scored very good marks, but again some students have got demotivated as well. Okay, so there is that mixed feedback. So depending on how the student worked on the feedback, you have seen the result. Again, another change you can see here is this student Piyush Mishra was the topper here, but that Piyush Mishra is nowhere in top 5 here. Okay, that is another learning. So these kind of things can actually give you some kind of feedback about the overall classroom performance as well, and about individual students as well. Okay, some students who scored less marks, have they really improved? Let us explore here. Okay, so when we talk about overall slow learners in the class, this is the list of slow learners. Okay, as you can see, we can try to find out whether these students have improved or not. So Piyush Dubey, okay, he scored 10 marks, but I think he scored 0 marks here. There has been some problem with the student. Maybe he didn't attend, he just opened the test. Okay, so like this you can see, like this student is not here in this list. That means that this student has actually improved and is no longer a weaker student as far as this topic goes. Okay, so that kind of feedback also you will get. Now this is a very interesting thing. When I was telling you about the feedback for teachers, in the first test we found that this concept in the class was weak at correct percentage was less than 20. Okay, so we gave this feedback to the teachers. We told them, like, ma'am, you need to teach the topic like what do all acids and bases have in common again. So they must have taught this topic again. And when you see the test report of test 2, you will find that there is no weak concept here. Okay, so this is the outcome which we have achieved here. My PDF has hand actually. So any questions, teachers, till now? Just give me 1 second. There has been some problem with my PC. Yeah. So this is the point. Like when I was telling you about like, do these things really work? This is how we have seen like how these things work. Okay. Now I am receiving one question from you that like I talked about objective questions and subjective questions both, and some teachers want to know how the subjective assessment work. So I would like to tell you that it is also possible to conduct subjective assessment as well. I will be showing you a small video here which will give you a brief idea about like how subjective assessments can be conducted in this. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen again. Yeah, so I hope my screen is visible and that YouTube video is also showing. Yeah. So I'll run this video. It will give you an idea about how you can conduct the subjective assessments in your class. Okay. So this is the first stage where teachers will assign the test to the students. Students have actually uploaded the answer, and this is how they can actually do it. They can add more answers also. So now the students are going to submit this answer. You can see they have uploaded 12 pages here for subjective questions, and this is the summary about objective questions. Okay. This is the next step, which is most critical for the teachers, how to evaluate a subjective answer sheet. Okay. This is something which has been very hard for them in this online world actually. Here we will see how it is made easy for them. These are the different ways teachers can actually annotate answer sheets. They can give some comment, they can highlight, or they can just write. can finally click on submit to complete the evaluation. So after doing the assessment, after completing it, teachers will get an option to publish the results or not. So they can choose when they want to publish it. Okay. So let us say you want to publish the result only on the day of PTM. Okay. So that is also possible. So you can just keep checking the answer sheets and keep saving them, and you can publish them on a single date at a later time. So this is the flow here. This is how you can conduct these kind of tests also in the portal as we have seen. Okay. Yeah. So coming back to the question again. So we have in this session, we have talked about how we can conduct different tests, what is the use of measurement, and what are the different areas where teachers' role is evolving, and what are the new types of responsibilities come. Okay. And in addition to that, we also talked about the need of measurement and the need of converting more intangible aspects to more tangible aspects. Okay. So again, I will ask the same question: is teaching an art or science? Okay. So even though it is a mixture of both science and art, okay, but as a company, this is what we are doing. Our attempt is convert more intangible aspect of your teaching to tangible aspects so that we can measure it. Okay. Because unless we measure it, there is no way we can improve it. Okay. So measurement is necessary, and this is how we can measure it, and we can use those measurements to take quality decisions as well to improve the overall academics. So yeah, so this is my part of presentation which is over. So I'm opening this forum for any questions teachers have. If they want to ask any question or clarify any doubts, please feel free to do so. So Setupati ma'am has told teaching is art of learning and a science of teaching. A very beautiful statement you have made. I would like to borrow this statement from you actually. It's very good. Teaching is art of learning and science of teaching. Hmm. Any questions, teachers, you want to ask?